All right. This is Danny Galvin coming to you live on the Tuesday Night Touchdown with Jordan Thompson. We got some great topics for you tonight. We're going to talk about some college basketball, of course, break down the Sweet 16, get into Zion Williamson, get into some RJ Barrett, some Ja Morant. We got some NBA, talk about Lonzo Ball, and a bunch of other stuff. So looking forward to the show tonight. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Appreciate you coming right back.
Of course, no problem. So I'm going to just hop right into it. So obviously this past weekend was the NCAA tournament. We had some great games all weekend. First two rounds they went well. I think there were less upsets this year than a lot of people anticipated. I feel like it was a very straightforward. I feel like with the top seeds kind of pulling through. We had some near upsets, but I feel like this year a lot of the lower seeds they couldn't go pull out that last stretch. So we're going to hop in right with the Sweet 16. So some of the matchups we got coming up this weekend: Gonzaga, Florida State, Tennessee, Purdue, Texas Tech, Michigan, Virginia, Oregon. So we got some great games there. That's one of the great things that we really have about the high seeds going in. Just looking at the matchups, we have a lot of good matchups. And the next day we have Michigan State, LSU, UNC, Auburn, Duke, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Houston. So, I mean, it kind of sucks we didn't have that Cinderella team really go all the way through. I mean, the lowest seed to make it through is Oregon this year, and I mean, you can't really call Oregon a Cinderella, even though they're a 12. I mean, it's Oregon still.
If they had Bull, they would be right on top of the rest of these teams.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I mean, Oregon was ranked, I believe, like 13th or 14th in the preseason poll, so it's not like they had expectations coming into the season. They just didn't really play up to them, and now they're kind of hitting their stride at the right time in the season. So I don't really think it's fair to call them a Cinderella. Just looking at these teams, yeah, I don't think there's, unless I'm forgetting someone. I'm looking at these matchups right now. I don't think there is a cut and dry Cinderella. Yeah, no, not really. So I mean, I'll just hop right into. I'll start with the Thursday games. I'll just ask your opinion. Out of Gonzaga, Florida State, Tennessee, Purdue, Texas Tech, Michigan, and Virginia, Oregon, what game are you looking forward to the most?
I'm really looking forward to. Okay, so, and I'm kind of biased. Sorry, you said the Thursday game?
The Thursday games. Yeah, I know you're looking forward to the LSU game. That's a Friday game though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, of course. But I'm gonna say in particular, there's some good matchups, but I'm really looking forward to Tennessee, Purdue.
I am too.
The main reason why, good matchups for both teams. But I think one of the best players, and you never see him, you never hear about him on ESPN's top 10 players, NCAA players going into the tournament. He wasn't on that. But I think one of the best players that is still alive in the tournament is Greg Williams, Tennessee. I think he's a force to be reckoned with. I love watching him play. Big body, great footwork, great, even better defense. I just love seeing him play. So, I mean, if you're asking me who I want to see, there's probably a better matchup. I think Gonzaga, Florida State. Team and team is a good matchup.
I think that's a great matchup too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I just get so excited being able to see Greg Williams play, especially when the nation's watching. So if I had to choose one Thursday game, it would be Tennessee and Purdue.
Oh no, yeah, and just looking at both those teams too, they both have such like entertaining players. Like obviously, Purdue has Carson Edwards, who put on an absolute show against Villanova. I mean, they dismantled Villanova, and Carson Edwards in the first half he couldn't miss, and I mean. He still played great in the second half, but they're up by 30. So I mean, what can you do? So I'm looking forward to Tennessee too. I think Admiral Schofield, he's been having a great NCAA tournament. He really got them over the hump. Who did Tennessee played against Colgate? Tennessee almost didn't make it to the run to 32. If you remember, Jordan Burns from Colgate dropped 32 on them. But what really got Tennessee over the hump against Colgate was Admiral Schofield's two big threes coming up. I mean. You got to have that leadership. He's another big body guy for Tennessee, good defender, good offensive weapon as well. So I think it'll be really fun. Obviously, Purdue also has Matthew Harums down low, big 7-footer. He'll be a force to be reckoned with. He's hard to stop. So I think that'll be a good matchup. Two high-powered offensive teams, but also very good defensively. I think I'm taking Purdue in this matchup. For the fact that I think Purdue is going to go all the way to the national championship game this year. I really think they will. I think a sleeper national championship that could possibly happen is Florida State and Purdue. I think that could happen. I think those two teams have been two of the most impressive teams in the tournament. They haven't really been tested all that much. They've looked very strong. Florida, not to get off Purdue, but Florida State, just off their sheer size and their depth they have. Um, Purdue, I think the only thing that holds back Purdue is so Carson Edwards. He had a great game last game, but obviously he's had some consistency issues this season. He shoots at like a 36% clip from the field, like twos and threes total, but he's like a very high volume shooter. So you gotta kind of look at that. But I think if he can facilitate as much as he scores and shoots, I think Purdue can take the sky's the limit for them.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and I think the other game, Texas Tech Michigan, I think that'll be good. I don't know all that much about either one of the teams. I know Jordan Poole is a great player. I know Texas Tech is a very high tempo, offensive oriented team, like pretty much all of the Big 12. So I don't know. I think that'll be a good matchup. I don't know all that much about the teams. Virginia, Oregon. I think Virginia will win that game. I know Virginia has had consistency issues in the tournament this past 3 or 4 years, but I think they'll pull it out. The other game, I think Florida State will upset Gonzaga. What do you think about that?
I really like Florida State's guards. Like Florida State always has great athletes. Um, even if some athletes don't necessarily have the skill or talent as other players, like you said, they're always long. They're always good athletes. So I like Florida State. When it comes down to these final rounds, playing good teams, like in most sports, defense that wins championships and their length and their athleticism definitely makes for a good defensive team. So I'd take Florida State in that one too.
Yeah, they're the tallest team in the ACC, one of the tallest teams in the NCAA. They have tremendous depth, so I think they'll be a really tough matchup. I think they'll be more than Rui Hachimura and all those boys in Gonzaga can handle, and I think they will make it on to the Elite Eight. Moving on to the Friday games, though, I know you're looking forward to that. So we got LSU and Michigan State. I'll let you talk about that a bit.
Oh man, I cannot wait for this game. Just because LSU is really hitting in stride. We don't have our head coach Will Wade from the FBI investigation, and I just think that honestly, I think that it gives our team a motivation. Michigan State's a very good team. Honestly, if I had to choose between one of them non-biasedly, I may give Michigan State the edge because they just have they're a great team, good shooting, but I don't know. Just as a biased LSU fan, of course I'm going with LSU.
Yeah,
super biased. I have them going all the way. Hopefully, if they win this game, they'll probably have to get by Duke, so their road is not easy. But I can't wait for that game. Both teams have great guard play.
Yep, definitely.
High tempo teams. I'm really excited for it.
What do you think they'll? Obviously, you're a big LSU fan, and you think they'll go all the way. But what do you think they need to do to take it to the next level? Do you think there's anything they need to sharpen up on? Things they need to do better at? I mean, because obviously, I mean, their first two games they played Yale and Maryland the first two rounds, and I mean, I'm not even hating against LSU or anything like that, but Yale and Maryland aren't exactly the most formidable opponents they're going to face. Like they're going to face Michigan State this round, and if they advance to the next round, they're going to play another really formidable team. So, what do you think they need to adjust to really take it to the next level, if anything?
No, that's definitely a fair question, and they definitely can get better in some areas. A lot of the times and I'm sure Duke and a lot of other big schools can attest to this. Especially Syracuse when they had Carmelo. When you have a player like Tremont Waters, he kind of handicaps you a little bit because he's able to bail you. Great players are able to bail their teammates out.
Yep.
If you're running a half court set or if you need a bucket.
Yep, and they use them as a crutch sometimes almost.
Yeah, they definitely do. And so he definitely pulls rabbits out of the hat, if you will, sometimes. And so my point in saying that is we have to play better team basketball. You can't at this point. It's about the other. That's how it always is in sports. When it comes down, when you're playing great teams, it's about the other guys. Teams are going to say, "All right, Waters is not going to get this many, but they're going to game plan around him." So the other guys have to step up. We have to have a better half court offense. That's our guards are really good
definitely
in transition. But at this point, teams may be pressing. You're going to have to use more bodies. People are going to be tired, maybe even injured. So the other guys have to step up, especially in the half court sets.
Definitely, I agree. I'm actually in that game. I think a really intriguing matchup is going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year, Cassius Winston, up against Tremont Waters. I think that'll be a really great guard matchup. I think that game's going to be a great game. I actually think I'm also going to go with LSU. I think LSU will pull that game out, even though I don't think they've snuck out of a couple games so far, but I think Yale was really hot shooting against them, which was, I think, uncharacteristic, and I don't think that game was as close as it should have been because Yale was just really hot. LSU Maryland, I think Maryland played one of the best games they played all year. I think LSU should have won that game. They wouldn't have any excuse had they lost, but I think Maryland played really well. Obviously Michigan State struggled against Bradley, and I can't remember who they played the round after, but they played really well the next round. I still think I like LSU in that matchup. I think they beat Minnesota by 20 in that. I mean, one thing you could attest to that was they're another Big Ten team, so Michigan State's really familiar with them. So that could attest to them playing really well. But at the same time, I like LSU. Like you said, I like Tremont Waters. I like the tempo they play with. I think Michigan State, they have demons of tournaments past kind of haunting them. I think Tom Izzo's stressed by it. Obviously, they lost as a 2 seed to 15 3 years ago. They lost the next year. I can't remember who they lost to the next year, but they got eliminated in the round of 32. And then the year after, last year, they also got eliminated before the Sweet 16 when they lost to 11 seed Syracuse last year. So I think Michigan State's been really highly seeded the past 4 years, and they haven't really broken the mold yet. And I don't think this is the year they'll do it. I think they're plagued by slow tempo, streaky shooting. They're not a really reliable offensive team consistently. So I think LSU will pull out that game. And I'm going forward, looking at some of the other games. I think another good game will be Kentucky-Houston. Houston coming into the tournament was 30-3. I think Houston will win that game. I think Kentucky is kind of running a bit on their resume or not their resume, but their name rather than the resume. I think outside of LSU, the SEC was a bit weaker than it usually is. And I think the other game that we could really touch up on is an ACC matchup, Virginia Tech and Duke. What do you think about Duke for just going forward in the tournament?
Oh man, and this is where experience definitely would help a team. All these times where you see those Cinderella team, that it's always the same thing. It's always 3 or 4 year guys, juniors, seniors that have the experience, that have the mental discipline, the mental strength to be able to will their teams to these wins.
Yep.
And them not having all of the all the veteran experience.
They don't have any veterans on that team, really.
Honestly. And so I don't know. With that being said, I don't know. See, the most important things with veterans is when you win a game, they keep you humble, and when you lose a game, they can bring you up.
Yep.
So after that game, let's be honest here,
they should have lost that game.
They should have lost that game.
Oh yeah.
So we don't know, with no veteran leadership, we don't know if they're going to say, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, man, kind of should have lost that game. There's a lot of times where we should have lost. A lot of fouls that weren't called that should have been. The ball rimmed out at the end. Basically, there's a lot of times where they should have lost.
Oh yeah, I mean on that last play where Zion drove in, there were about there should have been a push off on him, and then on that rebound there was a hook and hold and a push off or over the back on RJ Barrett. So if any of those got called, they lose the game. Also, if Taco Falls just lets Zion get the layup and doesn't foul him, they probably win the game too.
Exactly. And so with that being said, we don't know if that's gonna stick to their minds, and it's gonna play them, and it's gonna hurt them to where they don't have a better performance than Virginia Tech, which Virginia Tech is not as good as a team as Duke comes out and takes advantage of it.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. So I'm not sure. I'll go with Duke just because talent wise, and obviously they have Zion, RJ, Cam, Trey. But who knows? I don't know if they're going to come out with.
So I think Duke won't have a problem against Virginia Tech this round. I think I think they will beat Virginia Tech relatively easily, for the same reason that Michigan State beat Minnesota relatively easily. They've already played Virginia Tech 2-3 times this year, so they're very familiar with them. I can't remember the score exactly, but I'm pretty sure they beat Virginia Tech pretty handily at least once this year. They're just the more talented team. They're familiar with them. They don't have that surprise factor that a lot of teams that upset these big name teams do. Like obviously, Duke's never played against the likes of Taco Fall, or they don't even know UCF system. They never played against UCF, so they don't have that surprise factor. Duke will be very familiar with Virginia Tech's players, so I think they'll cruise into the Elite Eight. I think they will have problems in the Elite Eight though. I don't think they'll make it to the championship game, for the reason being, like you said, they don't have that veteran leadership presence. But at the same time, I was listening to something, and they threw out the statistic in the history of the NCAA tournament. Duke shoots the 3-point for the season. Their 3-point shooting percentage as a team is 32%. In the history of the NCAA tournament, no team has ever made the Final Four shooting the three that low. No team with that low of a 3-point shooting percentage has made it. And I think a great example would be John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins' Kentucky team. They were a great team. They cruised through the regular season, but everyone always said they can't shoot the three that well. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. Like someone's gonna catch them on a day where they can't make shots. They can't make shots, and the other team is gonna make shots, and they're gonna force them to shoot the three. And that is the blueprint, I think, to beating these teams, or that was the blueprint to beating that Kentucky team. And I think it's the same blueprint. You just gotta pack that inside so Zion can't get in there. Don't. Obviously, he's going to get points. Like, you can't completely shut him out, but make it really uncomfortable. Make it hard for him. So pack that zone. Force Trey Jones. Force RJ Barrett to shoot the three. I mean, the only consistent 3-point shooter on Duke's team is Alex O'Connell, but he's a defensive liability, so he doesn't really play. So,
well, Cam Reddish is all right.
Oh yeah, Cam Reddish is, but Cam Reddish has been very streaky this year, though. That's the thing. Like, there's
overall he hasn't been playing good basketball.
Yeah. I mean, there's some games where you seem like, oh man, that kid's got potential. And I'm not saying he doesn't have potential. He's definitely a baller. And maybe it's just because he's surrounded by Zion and RJ, and that kind of takes his shine away. But I feel like there's some games where you don't even realize he's there. You know, he just kind of like fades into the background. It's just like another player. You wouldn't realize he's a 5-star recruit. So I think, to go back to that Kentucky team though, I think Duke has the same Achilles heel as that Kentucky team did, and that Kentucky team. I mean, it's John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. Like we know those two guys, and those guys, especially in college, like those guys are like consensus number 1 and 2 players in the country. Similar to how Zion and RJ now. RJ is debatable number 3, but that Kentucky team, they went up against West Virginia, shot 8 for 32 from 3, and got manhandled by West Virginia. And that's how they got eliminated. They didn't make the Final Four. West Virginia eliminated them. And I think it'll be a similar scenario for Duke. I think they're gonna get someone's gonna play them where they're gonna be able to shut Zion out at least semi-effectively, to where he doesn't drop 30. Like I think if you hold Zion to 18 instead of 30, that's a successful defense. You know what I mean? And then you force Trey Jones, you force RJ Barrett to shoot 3. I mean, Trey Jones shot 1 for 8 against UCF. I mean, by all means, give him all the 3-point looks he wants. You know what I mean? So I think that's the
Trey definitely started. Man, I don't know. Shooting is if you've ever played basketball, shooting is straight mental. Maybe not dribbling, rebounding, playing defense, but shooting is mental, and there's something wrong with him mentally.
And especially in today's game too, it's like you live and die by the 3, but you like in today's game you really live and die by the 3. Like a 3-point game, that 3-point shot just completely changes the complexion of a game. So I think it'll be really, really interesting going forward. Obviously, we'll be able to talk about it next week when the Final Four will be set by next week, because the Sweet 16, the Elite 8 are this weekend. So we'll be able to talk about the Final Four. But leading into that, before it's set, who are you taking in the Final Four? What are the 4 teams you think are making it?
You said you asked the 4 teams. I think.
Yeah. What 4? Yeah. What 4 teams do you think are making after seeing the first round of the tournament go down? Have you changed your thoughts? Have you changed your picks, or are you rolling with the same guys you picked before the tournament started?
Well, of course, one team with LSU.
LSU. Yep.
After LSU, oh man, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the West. LSU in the East. So LSU out the East, West. Man, it's tough because I either think Florida State.
The West is tough. Texas Tech is down there too. Texas Tech could make it, I think.
Oh, true. Yeah, they can't make it. They're playing Michigan. I'm gonna say Florida State just because they're linked. But man, they're gonna have to step up shooting the ball.
Yep.
In the South, that's tough. I personally think it comes down to Purdue or Tennessee. I think I'm gonna go with Purdue, but I may regret that. So far I have LSU, Florida State, and Purdue, and then lastly I'm gonna go with North Carolina out of the Midwest. So,
I actually think we have the exact same Final Four. I think.
Oh.
I think we do. Yeah.
Great minds.
Yeah. I think I would go. Is LSU in the same region as Duke?
Yeah. We played the next round if we both win.
Yeah. So I think Purdue, I think, will make it to the Final Four. I think they've been playing really solid basketball. I think if obviously I touched on it before, but if Carson Edwards can stay consistent, I think they will make it. I think Florida State has looked like one of the strongest teams in the tournament so far. I think they might have even been a bit underseeded. They made it to the ACC championship game, which is no minor feat. I like North Carolina. I think North Carolina is probably the most complete team in the tournament, just from like veteran leadership, young guys, smart players, good coaching. I think they're probably. I would say UNC is probably the safest pick out of all the teams because they have all the components to some degree that it takes to win a championship. So I like UNC. And then Duke LSU. I want to pick Duke, but at the same time, I have this feeling about Duke where I don't feel like they're gonna make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you. It's tough.
It is tough.
No veteran leadership.
Yeah, it is tough.
That's so important.
But it's just like LSU as well. I mean, and I'm not saying this to rag on LSU or anything, but I feel like LSU hasn't been in this position in a long time either. So I don't know. I'll probably say Duke now, but if LSU makes it, or even if Michigan State makes it, even though I think LSU will beat them this weekend, but I think any of those three teams in that region probably make it. But I'm just for the sake of picking a team, I'll pick Duke. So I'll go Duke, UNC, Purdue, and Florida State. I think that's my Final Four right there. And I think
it would be pretty entertaining if we saw UNC Duke.
Yeah, that would. That would. And we'll finally get a Duke UNC game with Duke at full strength too, because I don't think Duke has played UNC at full strength this year yet either. So
well, no, they played one game when Zion came back. Remember Zion dropped like 30 points.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, so I do think that'll be interesting. I think Florida State Purdue even would be really fun. So I think there's a lot of good basketball. I think this upcoming round is going to be insane. I think there's going to be some real barn burners. So I'm looking forward to this weekend. But yeah, unless you have any.
And the last comment I'm going to say is, and the beauty of college basketball is, I do this a lot for football. I'm a huge football fan, and a lot of the times, if you're not right, you're close to being right. If a team that everyone doesn't pick doesn't win, then the other team barely wins. But in basketball, every single one of our picks could have been wrong. We could be seeing Virginia Tech, Gonzaga,
exactly,
Oregon. You know what
I mean? And I mean that's the thing about this year's tournament. There's not that Cinderella story this year, but genuinely, any of the 16 teams that are left could make it. All those teams can make it to the final. There's not one team where I look at and I'm like, yeah, they like snuck their way here. Like they're not a real team. Like every single team, like Oregon's the lowest seed, and they dismantled Wisconsin. So I think, I think they're hitting their stride. I don't think there's any real pretenders that are left. I think all the teams that are left are contenders. I think all of them can make runs. I picked my 4 teams, but I could be completely wrong. I could be completely right. You would never know. It's that college, like you're saying, that college basketball factor. Anyways, though, unless you have anything else to say about that, move on to our next topic. A former college basketball player in his rookie year this year, Lonzo Ball. And unfortunately, this is kind of a sad situation. Fortunately, this is not to do with anything really basketball related for Lonzo Ball. So obviously you know about the Big Baller brand, right? It was reported this weekend or this week that the person that LeVar Ball, Lonzo's father, put in charge pretty much with Lonzo's financials, Big Baller Brand's financials, all that. He had been convicted he had been convicted to 7 years of prison for money laundering and fraud, and apparently LeVar didn't know about this. I mean, like, it is fun. Yeah, I know. It's funny, but it's sad, and I mean, obviously it's a family matter, and all the details haven't come out, and it's one of those things where it's like not all the details need to come out because I think it would be better for it to stay in the family. However, in the aftermath of all that, Lonzo Ball has disassociated himself with the Big Baller brand, deleted pictures of him wearing shoes, wearing clothes, endorsing the Big Baller brand, deleted pictures with his father, LeVar Ball. He posted one picture with Nike's tagline, pretty much with like the "Just Do It" tagline. There was something else on there, but essentially the end was "Just Do It." And it was he captioned it something along the lines of I'm my own man now. I'm gonna do what's right for me. Also, beyond Lonzo, his brothers, LaMelo and LiAngelo, they also deleted pictures associated with the Big Baller brand and LeVar. What do you think should happen going forward? What do you think about this whole situation? What do you make of it?
I think it's definitely a mental situation. It's tough. It's really tough when you feel like you can trust people, but you can't.
Yeah,
It seems like people always have this natural greed. But I was talking to a good friend the other day, a long time Lakers fan, and ever since I was a huge Lonzo Ball fan at UCLA. I thought he was Showtime. I thought he was meant for the Lakers. But when he got drafted, and after I saw him play his first couple games, I was like, he's not ready.
yeah,
Mentally, he's not ready. It seems like. I mean, of course, the basketball time is big. We've seen it, but something about him just doesn't say professionally is ready. I told my friend when we were different. I said, this is his time. The last 2 years, I have not really had. I said, yeah, he's kind of a solid role player. But now this is his time. I feel like mentally he's locked in. That picture that you talked about, how he said that hashtag my own man, I think that speaks a lot. I think that's really nothing that a lot of times people on social media saying this and that. But Lonzo Ball, I mean, he really has been not closeted by his father, but definitely like a monkey on his back, it seems like.
his father has made it a lot harder than it needs to be. I agree.
Really, really. I mean, and another thing that I said to my friend, I said, do you know? I mean, if I'm just a veteran, 8, 9 years, had to grind to the top of the league or grind to just stay in the league, something like a Patrick Beverly, and this guy, this kid, this pretty boy coming from a rich family, going to private schools, and his dad's talking about he's this, that, better than Steph Curry.
Better than LeBron.
Better than LeBron. I'm gonna make it my personal mission to where he does not succeed in this league. If I'm guarding him every night, he's not. So, and that just makes it so much harder. And so I think now Lonzo Ball has relocked. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know. I'm not in his head. But if I had to pick, he's locked himself in. He's now pushing out the things that are holding him back. And
Exactly.
the things that are going to make bringing in things that are going to make him who we thought he was going to be. And I'm excited to see him play because I feel like he's going to play with a whole new aggression. I bet he's going to maybe get it. Hopefully, he gets to deal with Adidas, Nike, something. Maybe Nike, since
it does suck though. You not to cut you off, but you saying that it does suck though. If he had taken the Nike deal coming in as a rookie, he probably would have gotten way more money than he's going to get now because he's just right now he's just an average player and there's not that it factor like that he might have had. So I think it is kind of he's losing a lot of money.
He did. He's losing a lot of money, and I don't think he'll ever regain that money again.
I don't think he will either.
Unless he relocks in and says, this is a whole new me. The thing is, you saw the last 2 years, it was a decent ball player. But now my own man, the BBB stuff out the window, the LeVars, the interviews, the shows, all that stuff is gone. I'm ready to hoop now. What you saw at UCLA is here now.
Yep.
And he's going to show us what he can do, and I'm excited for it. I really wasn't excited to see him play before because I said, he's kind of a shell of himself, but now I'm excited to see him play.
I'm happy too. It seems like he's finally. I agree with everything you just said, and I think that this might be a really good maturing and learning experience. I think I mean, people don't give Lonzo enough credit, I feel like. And I was always, I'm not gonna, I'll be the first one to admit, I don't like LeVar's antics, and I was always just kind of like rooting against Lonzo because of all the stuff that LeVar talked. But now that this has all happened, I feel really bad for him, and I hope he goes out and I hope he becomes his own person. I think he's showing that he's maturing at a really young level, because not only has he done this for himself really, but he's also taken his brothers along. Um,
True. Yeah.
He's kind of taken them under his wing, taking them out of his father's light. I think that big baller brand and all that stuff, that was for LeVar. That wasn't for Lonzo. I mean,
I agree.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a tough situation. I think LeVar, not only did he make it harder for Lonzo, but he also made it way harder for his two younger sons, LiAngelo and LaMelo. I think LaMelo should still have his college eligibility, but he had to go to Lithuania and do all that nonsense and lose it. LaMelo should still be at UCLA playing, and who knows, maybe in an NCAA tournament. I mean, he would have had those 4 years to develop, possibly into an NBA player. Who knows? So I think he's really hampered his son's success, and I don't think that LeVar truly meant like to harm his sons, because like as a father who really does like set out with the intention of staggering their son's success. But I think LeVar was so jaded in his own pursuit for just television time and fame and living vicariously through his sons that I think he lost sight of really what it meant to put his sons in a position to be successful and to maximize their potential. So I think it is a really sad story. I think that it was incredibly reckless of LeVar, against all things, just on the sheer logistics facts, like not relationships or with his sons or anything like that. But this guy's a convicted felon, and you put him in charge of the money. And not only is a convicted felon, he's convicted of money laundering and fraud. You know what he did? You know what this guy did? You know what he got convicted of?
No, I didn't. I just put the money laundering.
So yeah, it was money laundering and fraud. He would what this guy would do, what he got convicted of, he would go into churches, and he would go into churches, and he would go to people and talk to them about investing money in these religious shell companies, or like religious businesses, and people who were trying to raise money. And he was like, if you invest in these spiritual things and whatever, then I'll recuperate your investment and bring it back to more. But pretty much what he did was just take these people money, and they just never got it back. And he defrauded over $5 million of people going to churches and stealing money, meeting people at churches and stealing money from them. And I mean, essentially the tactic there was, out of all places to get robbed, you don't expect someone to rob you at church. So that's the place where he viewed people as the most vulnerable. So therefore he went and preyed on people who were at church, because they were the least expecting to be frauded and robbed, essentially. So I think he's obviously a soulless person. Yeah, so, and just the fact that LeVar would be that reckless, I think really speaks to how little control that LeVar actually has, even though he talks a big game. So I think it's really sad. To carry on with that, you think of, like, before this, I kind of thought of LeVar as like, yeah, he talks a big game, but like he is like from the streets, like, quote unquote. Like, he growing up, like, obviously his kids grew up in Chino Hills, but he was like from inner city California. So I figured he would be able to kind of filter through all the BS, but I think it's sad he didn't do that. He was blinded, jaded by chasing his son's success, and I don't know. I think it.
I just want to. I want to make a point real quick, and I don't want to get too personal or make it emotional or anything like that. But I feel bad for a lot of media members, especially a lot of white media members, because the pushback they would immediately get if they said anything about LeVar Ball and his antics was, well, at least he's a African American father who's loving his kids. A lot of African American kids don't have their fathers around. I'm just gonna be real. So my mom's white and my dad's black. My biological father left my mom when my mom got pregnant, right? So I'm kind of one of the products of someone that they are talking about, someone with an African American dad who's not around.
Mhm.
Well, I can say this: I'd rather my father not be around than he act a fool like this, put a target on my back, take money out of my pocket,
$1.5 million.
$1.5 million, and I have to suffer from it. You know, you look at Kyrie Irving's dad, a Australian basketball player, a great. He doesn't say anything. He goes and watches his son play. He claps for all the other parents. Same thing with Ben Simmons' dad. Same thing with Joel Embiid's dad came to sound. But that's not your job. And the only reason I bring all that past personally up is because if anybody, I feel like people in those positions that maybe African Americans whose father did leave them. Well, I can say if this is what I would get if my father was with me, was here, I don't want it. You know what I mean? Like that. That's not something. I feel like people use that. You know, he's like, well, at least I'm here loving my sons. No. This is way beyond it. You can love your sons from the stand clapping like the rest of the parents because it's their show, not yours.
No, and I can't speak from that experience, but Chris Broussard was actually saying something similar on Undisputed, and he was saying we can't use this narrative that, oh well, at least he was a black father who was there. Like he was saying, the African American fathers, there is this negative stigma, but he was saying that's just because a small minority of them are bad. The reality is that most of them are good and most of them are there for their sons and most of them want to see their sons succeed without doing all these antics. So he was like, we can't make excuses for fathers doing the bare minimum. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We can't make those excuses. And so he was just saying basically essentially what you were saying. And I can't agree more. Like I said, I can't speak from the experience personally, but I think there are, like, obviously there's a tremendous, just in every ethnicity, there's bad fathers and there's good fathers. And I don't think you can harp on stereotypes to give someone an excuse, because I think there are more great fathers out there than there are terrible fathers, and we can't give bad fathers breaks because they're not terrible fathers. So I think that's where I stand on it, and I can't agree with what you said anymore.
Yep. I do agree. You gotta look at things from what it is, the reality of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, but I mean, unless you have anything else to say about that, it's kind of a sad story. I hope Lonzo gets it all together, but I don't really have anything else to say unless you do.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, well, in that case, we'll be moving on to the NFL. I think you know where I'm going with this. There's not too much NFL action going on right now, other than free agents, but obviously Rob Gronkowski just retired, one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Now that he's retired, who do you think will be the next up? Obviously, there's kind of three candidates who stand above. I know you're a George Kittle kind of guy. So there's George Kittle, Travis Kelce, and Zach Ertz. We're first. Who would you say is number one, and where would you rank the three of them from 1, 2, 3?
Oh man, it's really tough because the playmaking ability of Travis Kelce is and historically in his career is immense.
Yeah.
And then the reliability of Zach Ertz is even greater.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to go with George Kittle with number one. I mean, I know the Kittle has only had 2 seasons under his belt with not great team, or with the 49ers, not great quarterbacks, not a great team. But he has playmaking. I mean, the kid is fast. I saw the Colts just recently signed Justin Houston, free agent, a really great Pro Bowl edge rusher.
Yeah.
The first highlight, I was so excited and everything because I'm a big Colts fan. So I looked up Justin Houston. I just looked up Justin Houston on YouTube. The first video I saw, and I didn't know this was a video. The first video I saw was George Kittle in his rookie year putting Justin Houston on his back. And I was like, so this kid he's not just blazing speed, has great.
He's strong, yeah.
He's strong. He's putting Pro Bowl veteran edge rushers on their back. He put them on his back and laid on him. Like I was like, man, this kid he has it all. So number one, I'm gonna go with George Kittle. And a lot of people would argue that and say Travis Kelce, but I'm going to go the other way and not even put Travis Kelce second. Zach Ertz, And maybe it's just it is a possibility. Maybe Carson Wentz just loves Zach Ertz so much that
Yeah.
he makes him look a little bit better than what he is. But I disagree. I think that Carson Wentz, it's not just a connection thing. He realizes Zach Ertz is one of the best receivers on the field.
I agree.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Zach Ertz second. I think that's just a personal standpoint. I
Mhm.
can't put his stats and their team success obviously probably doesn't match Travis Kelce's. But if you're asking me what tight end do I want, and you're only giving me Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, I'm taking Zach Ertz. Sorry, he's more reliable.
Yeah.
And Zach Ertz is also a better blocking tight end than Travis Kelce. And then third, I'm gonna put Travis Kelce. All of them are great, but those are my personal list.
So I haven't watched any 49ers games in the past 2 years. I mean, maybe I have, but none of them have been memorable. So I haven't seen much George Kittle. I've like seen some of his highlights. I've heard word of mouth of how good he is, but I haven't seen him in action really. So I feel like this wouldn't really be fair for me to make a clear judgment on his skill set because first of all, he's been in the year for 2 years. But at the same time, I'm not familiar with his game enough, and I'm also not familiar with the team enough too. So I feel like that's not really fair. So I'll put him off to the side right now. I think obviously I completely respect that your opinion, but I just don't have enough to really put him into my decision. Like you said, obviously as an Eagles fan, I'm going to be a bit biased here, but I really like Zach Ertz's game. I think he is probably the best receiving tight end in the league because I think he plays like a slot receiver almost. Like he plays like down the middle. He makes all those big catches. He has great hands for a tight end. So I think
he's tough.
Yeah, he is tough. He's very tough. So I like Zach Ertz. I'll say Zach Ertz is probably my number one. Not that Travis Kelce isn't a great player. I think he's tremendous, but especially when we're talking about a team MVP too. I think Zach Ertz had a much more profound effect on the Eagles than Travis Kelce did on the 49ers. And that's not really at Kelce's fault too much because he's surrounded by such a plethora of elite offensive weapons on the 49ers. But I think the way that Zach Ertz was utilized this year really showed his useful. It really showed off all his talents, and I think that he's in for another big season this year. I think his past 2 seasons, specifically the year they won the Super Bowl, he wasn't a crutch target for Carson Wentz that year. But I still think he had a great year. He was consistent. He called the big catches. He played huge in the Super Bowl for one. So I think with those 2 years in mind, I think Ertz has had a better 2-year run than Kelce's had in his career. And that's not to say that Kelce wasn't good the past 2 years, but I just think Ertz this year broke the all-time receiving record, all-time catch pass record for a tight end, broke Jason Witten's record. And then also the year before that, he didn't have a tremendous amount of catches, but he was still a high volume target. And he played really big in the big game. So I think I'll give the edge to Zach Ertz in this one. To carry on with that, though, I'll ask you another question. Where do you think Gronk ranks all time of all the tight ends? Just your opinion on that.
That's really tough because as much as I don't like the Patriots because they've put me through hell, being a Colts fan, I have to pay my respects. I have to pay homage. Rob Gronkowski, if he's not the best tight end, then I put him behind Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez he was just a playmaker, strong hands, a touchdown maker. And when you have two greats up next to each other, then a lot of like Michael Jordan and LeBron, it's really just up to your personal bias, who you like to watch, all that kind of stuff. And I just have to go with Tony Gonzalez. When it comes to athleticism, they're kind of similar. When it comes to that,
I would say the knock against Tony Gonzalez though would be the 1-7 in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to a position like tight end, it's really hard for me to.
Yeah, that is true. I agree.
Yeah. However, Gronk has almost double the amount of catches in the playoffs as Tony Gonzalez. And you can go to the fact that Gronk kind of played with maybe the best quarterback we've ever seen in our lives.
Yeah.
His entire career. So I think that has a lot to attest to it. I would have to go with Tony Gonzalez and put Gronk second. So that would be my 1 and 2. I place Gronk second all time.
Yeah, I know. So obviously Shannon Sharp was making a big argument for himself. I'm undisputed. However, just looking at like pure numbers, I think Gronk really only essentially played 7 years with missing 2 years from injury. Like when you look at all the games that he missed throughout his whole career. And even with that in consideration, I think he had 60 odd touchdowns in the playoffs to Tony Gonzalez's 45, I believe. And I think if you just look at regular season success and just like pure like ability and like how they play on the field, and you look at like the regular season and everything, I think you have an argument for Tony Gonzalez. I feel like what really puts Gronk over the edge is how much success he had in a relatively short amount of time playing. If you just look at his playoff success, I think it really speaks to the athlete he is and the player he is. So I don't know. I think I'll go with Gronk as being the greatest. Obviously, I'm not. I got more into football more recently, so a lot of the stuff I'm going to is like watching videos, reading articles and stuff. So I have tremendous respect for your opinion because I'm sure you know way more than I do. But I don't know. Just from my brief time, really getting involved in the sport of football and reading about past players and looking at past players now and stuff, I think I'd have to go with Gronk, but I think Tony Gonzalez is also an excellent pick.
Yeah, and truly, it's like splitting hairs. You know?
Yeah,
it's there's no clear cut.
And that's the problem with picking a greatest of all time in anything, because it's like these guys don't play against each other really, or if they do, they're like one's at the tail end of their career and one's at the beginning of their career. So it's like it's not really like playing against each other. It's not like these guys are like going head to head in their prime and stuff like that. So I think in a lot of these situations, it's picking a greatest of all time is really sticky. But I mean, in today's sports world, it's something you kind of have to do. You know what I mean? There has to be a greatest. So I think I agree with what you're saying. Anyways, though, moving on to our last topic, we are gonna. I know you're gonna be excited to give me this because 2-3 years ago you were on the D'Angelo Russell wagon already. And I was not on the D'Angelo Russell wagon. I thought he was a bust. I thought after he left LA, I was like, well, there was a reason why they traded him for pretty much nothing. So my question to you is, I know you're a big D'Angelo Russell kind of guy, but has he proven himself as an elite first tier NBA point or NBA guard? Or if not, like what tier do you think he falls in? Is he the second or third tier?
Well, we're talking about overall players, and he's not in the first tier. He would definitely be in the second tier if we're talking about just good players overall.
Yeah.
If we're talking about point guards, that's really tough. I think I would still put him in the second tier.
Yeah, Kyrie,
really
Steph, Damian, and Russell in that first tier probably.
It's really hard for me to. And, a tier doesn't necessarily have a limited amount of spots, but it's hard for me to compare a D'Angelo to a Steph and a Russell. Just because in reality, he still is on the Nets. He doesn't have any star power next to him. There's really not a lot of pressure where he's at.
Yeah.
They're not, the Nets are really not even on national television. Besides, they just kind of got some buzz lately. So I still put him. I wouldn't put him in the first tier. As biased as I am to him, I gotta be real, and I gotta be realistic. He's not a first tier point guard, but he definitely is an all-star caliber player. He's still. I don't know yet if he could be a franchise player. I need to see some longevity. I need to see 1 or 2 more seasons of this, and then he can get that.
I agree.
Possibly talking about max money.
Yep.
But definitely something special, yeah. And and the reason why is I watched him at Ohio State. And I was like, man, this kid is special. I thought when you play in LA, and they all know this now, it's weird playing in LA because it's like you have this pressure when you really shouldn't. Like you have to be great because you're wearing purple and gold and you're playing in Los Angeles. So I said, and I thought Brooklyn was a perfect place for him to go. He blossomed as a leader, blossomed as the best player in the franchise as of right now. And I think, he hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think he's established himself or if not establish himself, he's establishing himself to the point of like that like Kemba Walker level. You know what I mean? Where he's like,
yeah.
I wouldn't want him to be my primary star on my team, but I think if he's like that second option on your team, he could be really, really good in that role. Especially,
Yeah.
and I think the reason why I wasn't sold on D'Angelo Russell was because he's not like a freak athlete. Like he's a big guy, but he's not like a freak athlete. He's not like a Russell or something where he's just like you look at them and you're like, oh, like that like he's not super fast. He's not super strong. He doesn't jump super high. So that's why I wasn't really sold on him because he didn't look all that skilled in LA. But I think at this point, it speaks more to LA's inability to cultivate young talent. Yeah, assess and cultivate. Like they've drafted good guys, but once the guys have gotten there, they haven't been able to really. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. They haven't been able to.
Kind of blossom.
Yeah, they haven't been able to grow and get the players to reach that next level. And they traded away some really good guys like Julius Randle's having a breakout year along with D'Angelo Russell. So I don't know. I think he's on that second tier. I think if he gives another one more years of really good production, I think he will have fully established himself as that second tier. I think it's not impossible for him to move up into that first tier because he is a big body guy. He's big for the position. He's a good scorer. He's a good defensive player because he is big for his size. I think if he does get stronger, if he does work on his lateral quickness a bit more, I think he can be a really, really elite point guard. And obviously, some of that's natural ability, so I can't knock him too much for it. But I think he does have a lot of skills. He's working on it, and I think the best is yet to come for D'Angelo Russell still. So I will concede that you were right 2 years ago, and I was wrong. I'll give you that. One last thing to add about that though is less about D'Angelo Russell and more about the team. As looking at LA and New York, but not the Lakers and the Knicks. And I just want to get your opinion on this real quick. So I feel like the Nets and the Clippers have always been like JV league, Knicks and Lakers. Like historically, like I feel like the perception of those two teams, whether they're like Walmart brand Lakers and Knicks, like the Clippers and the Nets were. However, I think that could change in this summer. I think that could change this summer because I think the Clippers and Nets are more lucrative free agent locations than the Lakers and the Knicks are. I think the Knicks are going to absolutely get completely destroyed. I don't think they're going to get any big name free agent this summer. I think it's going to make trading KP look like an absolute joke. I think the Knicks are going to be a laughing stock of the league for the next at least 6 years. And I think the Nets could possibly land one or two big guys. I think Kawhi will probably go to the Clippers, and I think that might drag another big name person over there. And I think the Nets and the Clippers could possibly be the talk of the town in New York and LA. What do you think about that?
I think that's very possible. I'm going to be real. If I'm a superstar, I don't want to go play in LA right now.
Even at the Clippers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the Lakers. I wouldn't want to play.
Yeah.
The Lakers. So yeah, and the Clippers look. The Clippers look appetizing. They have 2 max spots open. Lou Williams is a good player.
They have a lot of good role players too. A lot of good role players.
A lot of good.
Like they have no stars right now, and they're still a playoff team.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a group of guys that aren't the most talented roster, but they know their jobs. They do their specific jobs well. That's what it's about when it comes to pro sports.
Yep.
In pro sports, it's not about how many things you can do well. It's what you do well, what the team needs you to do well, and you doing it night in and night out.
Yep.
And I think the Clippers are the best. Yeah, they're a really cohesive group, hardworking group. I mean, you have guys, Lou Will, 6-man, Patrick Beverly, sets the tone.
Yep.
I think his last
Montrezl Harrell. Yep, Montrezl. Yep.
Playing great. I wish they would have kept Tobias because that definitely. I mean, I know they're trying to create cap space, but if they had Tobias to.
The thing is, since they've traded him, they're still in like a good team too.
Yeah, true. I would like to go. I think the Clippers because it's still LA. LA. Everyone's living in LA,
and they play in the same stadium as the Lakers, even.
Yeah, exactly. So I would look to, and nobody. I'm sorry, Lakers just seem so toxic right now.
Yeah,
they're going to get a new coach. They're always on the media. You got to play next to LeBron, and it seems like if you don't go 82-0 when you're playing with LeBron and don't win a championship, then the media's in your face every day. Every storyline is about you and how you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little bit too much. I thought for a second maybe it was just, when he played in Miami, like the stars were not necessarily almost equal. LeBron was a little bit above.
Also, he was 28 in Miami. He wasn't 34 in Miami too. I think that'll be a big factor.
True, exactly. And when LeBron leaves, what's gonna
exactly
what's gonna happen? So I think the Clippers look very look great. Also, the Nets. I mean, D'Angelo. I mean, I think the Nets are really very similar to the Clippers.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say the same thing.
As well. But they have like Dinwiddie,
Spencer Dinwiddie,
another guy I can't think of it. LeVert, I think his name.
Karis LeVert, yeah.
Karis LeVert. They have guys that definitely are great role players, and then a star on top of it. I think they're very, very similar to the Clippers. So I would actually, if I was looking for a supermax, I would go to either one of those places too. And on top of that, historically, those franchises haven't really done anything. I mean, the Nets haven't really made a splash since they had Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
When he got to the finals, I mean, you don't really have a lot of pressure because there hasn't been much expectations out of either one of them. I mean, the Clippers with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they were eliminated in the first round almost every single year.
Yeah.
So, it's really no pressure. I like both teams. They're in New York and LA. Everyone wants to live it. Everyone wants to live it on the West or East Coast. I'd like it. I think it looks great for.
You don't have to going to the Nets too. You don't have to deal with that Manhattan traffic every time you want to go to MSG too. So,
oh man.
I mean, yeah. So, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I think even if the Lakers and the Knicks aren't good, I think having two LA team and a New York team that are good, I think that still will help the league, even if it is the Clippers and Nets. So I don't know. I think that's really exciting going forward. I'm excited for D'Angelo. I'm excited for the Nets, even though I'm a Knicks guy. I'm excited for the Clippers, and yeah, I'm excited for the NBA as a whole next year. But yeah, unless you have anything else to add about that, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Well, in that case, it was great to have you in again. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Yeah, and it was great. So thank you guys for tuning in. It was the Tuesday night touchdown. Tune in every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time at WICR, and we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you. Thanks for coming in, Jordan.
No problem. Love being here.
Yep, appreciate it.